can't you see me? This is stupid.
Get real, Charlie. You're appearing before me in the grown-up world of Crown Courts. You have to understand that you can't see me on your own. Our relationship in these circumstances has changed.
I just wanted to ask you one thing.
Well, you can't, unless you want to risk a retrial.
Well, you see Joe alone all the time.
Charlie, this is not up for debate. Now, you have to change now you're in this world. Go on, hop it.
Quick as you can with the light.
I've been living with the Surrey a few weeks now, and finally, this is what it's all about for me. It's the dong of the stick fight. My village is just, I'm in and amongst it now, and they're coming in around me. The other village is on the other side, and somewhere in the middle here is just about to kick off. I've no idea what to expect, but it's just going to be mayhem.
On camera 1, coming to 2 next.
Couldn't you have settled on gnomes?
I take it you didn't order these.
Standby studio. On air.
From 1945 to the late 1960s, risk was part of everyday life for a select group of men prepared to push speed from 400 to 4,000 miles an hour for their country.
Pretty soon you were pinned back into your seat, and this started to get painful. The tendons that hold your heart to your chest started hurting.
Hot passion to end Sunday night now on BBC One, with sex, some violence and some strong language. As the temperature rises, the scheming begins in Body Heat.
One year, one show. The Chris Moyle Show. Back with a first-year birthday party. Tomorrow from 7 on Radio 1.
Welcome back. Them family is back. 3 generations under one roof. This can only lead to chaos. Welcome back, the Crouches. Tomorrow, 10:35 on BBC One.
Thermostat by 1 degree could save you up to 10% off your heating bill. Save energy, money and the environment. Call 0845 727 7200.
BBC News 24 takes BBC One through the night in a few minutes. First, let's cast our gaze heavenward for the late night weather forecast now from John Hammond.
Hello, well, as you are all too aware, probably, we are in a spell of turbulent weather, but we are not alone, because the storm which battered our shores on Saturday has also battered the shores of our near neighbours in northern Europe. Parts of Germany saw gusts as high as 94 miles an hour, and that storm whistled up towards Scandinavia, badly affected here. Tens of thousands without power, and just like this country, air, sea and rail travel badly disrupted. There's Little Beastie, storm centre moving up towards Scandinavia as we went through Saturday night into Sunday. And now we've got a problem coming in from the west, another area of low pressure bringing more heavy rain and strong winds to the north and the west of the UK. You can see the large arrows at the start. It settles down briefly, then another storm system through the middle of the week before finally, towards the end of the week, the arrows get smaller, signs of the weather calming down. Well, that's a long way off at the moment. It's pouring with rain again across the northwest of England, including the Carlisle area, parts of Snowdonia too. Some heavy and persistent rain, some very strong winds too. Severe gales pushing up from the southwest. Gusts as high as 80 miles an hour could well cause some structural damage. Later on in the night, the worst of the gales starting to push off northeastwards as this weather front tracks down towards southeastern parts of England, bringing some outbreaks of rain. So clouding over here, a spell of rain. In fact, for the far southeast, Kent, it could well stay rather miserable for much of the afternoon. But for the rest of us, a better prospect of some sunshine, in actual fact, through the afternoon. Many eastern areas having a bright and breezy end to the day, but there will be a scattering of showers out west. There'll be blustery showers, quite a fresh wind, so it'll feel quite cool out there, particularly in the north. 6s and 7s for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, for a brief time, temperatures might climb as high as 10 or 11 degrees. But then on the horizon is the next storm system, which is set to batter the north and the west of the UK again around the middle of the week. Damaging winds and heavy rain, a distinct possibility. So after a dry start on Tuesday, the rain will sweep its way eastward. Some heavy and persistent rain, particularly to the high ground of Wales and northwest England, just where we don't need it, of course. And the winds will be picking up to severe gale in exposed places, bringing the risk of some damaging gusts once more. Now, there is a replay taking place on Tuesday evening, or there should be. Gretna taking on Dundee. It's a postponed game that was scheduled to take place on Saturday. Well, hopefully it'll take place on Tuesday night, but I wouldn't guarantee it because of the risk of that very heavy rain, very strong winds. Here's the storm system responsible. A lot of strong wind, a lot of heavy rain wrapped around the centre of that low pressure. It will whistle its way northeastwards come Tuesday night into Wednesday. Still some very strong winds across the far north into Wednesday. But for the rest of us, signs finally of it starting to settle down, some good spells of sunshine. It'll be chilly. There'll be some wintry showers across the north and the west, but many southern areas will eventually become dry. The wind's starting to ease off, and certainly by Thursday it's looking much more settled. Many places having some good spells of sunshine. Just a scattering of showers across the far north. That's it. Have a very good night.
I booked the meeting room.
I took the minutes.
I printed the schedule.
I drew the blueprints.
I supplied the timber. I dug the foundations.
I charted the trains.
I worked the points.
I opened the doors.
I took the clothes.
I led the way.
I closed the door.
1,100,000 died at Auschwitz, 1 million of them Jews. But their deaths were not simply the work of a few fanatical Nazis. Killing on this scale involved thousands of different people. A new series examines how it was possible. Auschwitz, the Nazis and the Final Solution starts Tuesday at 9 on BBC Two.
Well, our familiar capoeira had a view of the capital, bringing us to the end of Sunday night here on BBC One. So, on behalf of the late team here at the BBC Television Centre in London, this is Dean Lydiot wishing you a pleasant rest of the night. Breakfast on the air at 6, but until then, the latest through the early hours now. Direct from BBC News 24.
$5,000 are still missing, presumed dead. The coast became a wasteland. We came across this woman picking through the remains of her home. She uses a stick to avoid the snakes. We saw these villagers fighting over the first aid. The food is arriving. The cleanup is underway, and disease is not the threat initially predicted. But it will take years to return to the past. Such is the scale of the disaster that the President's office has been turned into a war room. The mood is frantic. The task to coordinate the biggest aid operation in history. What makes this one different to previous humanitarian crises?
It's quite extraordinary. First of all, it happened in real time, and it was on television and in front of the newspapers. All the destruction we are talking about, which affected 2 continents and 12 countries, happened in 7 hours. And you had people with their cameras and videos, and so we got lots of footage. Everybody saw the human tragedy. And it was, don't forget, it was also Christmas time, a time of giving.
How can you be sure that the money that people have collected and donated is actually going to be spent properly?
I think we need to work constantly with the governments, but what has been remarkable about this particular crisis is that individual citizens have also contributed quite a lot. And we owe it to those who have contributed, governments and individuals, to ensure that the money is used effectively, the aid gets to those who need it, and we are setting up mechanisms to be able to monitor.
This is a very resilient society and it will recover, probably sooner rather than later. But when an event of nature as catastrophic as this has taken place, no one can foresee all the consequences, be they political or social. Matt Fry, BBC News, Colombo.
Powerful storms in the US state of California have killed at least 2 people and caused mudslides and heavy flooding. A man and 2 children were lucky to escape as their house was wiped out when oversaturated ground gave way underneath it. The storms affected areas from San Francisco to Los Angeles and are expected to continue throughout Monday. Britain's Prime Minister Tony Blair and his most senior colleague, the Chancellor Gordon Brown, have moved to quash media reports of a deepening rift between them just months before an expected general election. Mr Blair denied reports that there had ever been a deal under which he would step down in favour of the Chancellor. A new book, said to be based on interviews with senior ministers, talks of the relationship becoming one of mutual animosity after Mr Blair changed his mind about stepping down. But the political editor of the Daily Telegraph newspaper, George Jones, says the new book merely adds detail to what is already known.
It is now an accepted fact at Westminster that Tony Blair did have a wobble, that he believed that he had been so damaged by the Iraq war that he might have to step down as Prime Minister because the voters wouldn't trust him. He actually came back from that. Members of the Cabinet, other than Gordon Brown, persuaded him to stay on, and he did. Gordon Brown, however, the Chancellor, who thought that he was on the brink of realising his long-held ambition to become Labour leader and Prime Minister, felt that he'd been cheated. I mean, that has been common currency at Westminster. What this book does is adds more detail, more colour, as it were, to the basic facts that we know. And of course, it's just come out just at a time when we've seen both the Chancellor Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, or as it were, vying for attention to show that they are the most concerned in the government about aid and